Shalom, Mr. Shalom, giving all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh Ba'Shem, Hamashiach Blakawah Shai. The word knows Yahweh as God. The word knows Yahweh Shai as Jesus. Hamashiach will be the Christ. And I'm coming back at you, man, with the soldier salutation and the precepts of the day. Ready, set, go. It's to be the book of Romans, chapter 7, Salakia, chapter 7, and verse 5. And it reads, "For when we were in the flesh, the motions of sins, which were by the law, did work in our members to bring forth fruit unto death." Right? So if you understand what Paul is speaking on, he's speaking on what the wages of sin is. Right? This is Romans 7, which is right after 6, verse 6 and 23. It tells you that the wages of sin is death, right? It says, "For when we were in the flesh, the motions of sins which were by the law did work in our members to bring forth fruit unto death." Right? I got a quick precept. It's the book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 5, and I'm going to go to verse 16. And it reads, "Wherefore henceforth know we no man after the flesh." So Paul is going into that we know at this point, once we are reborn, we are no longer within our flesh. We are renewed in the spirit. It says, "Yea, though we have known Hamashiach after the flesh, yet now henceforth know we him no more. Therefore," verse 17, "if any man be in Hamashiach, he is a new creature. Old things are passed away," which means walking amongst the flesh. "Behold, all things are become new." So that means that you had a new renewal of mind, a renewal of spirit, a renewal of heart. Right? So all praise to the Most High. Let's go back to Romans chapter 7 and let's start picking up at verse 6. Right? And it reads, "But now we are delivered from the law." How could you be delivered from the law? Right? "That being dead wherein we were held, that we should serve in newness of spirit and not in the oldness of letter." Which means if we're a new creature, then we're renewed in the spirit. And if we're walking in the spirit, we're walking in the newness of our flesh, right? Let's get another precept. Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 8. And it reads, "But we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully." So we know that the law is good if you're using it right. Right? It says, "Knowing this, that the law is made for a righteous man." Let's see what type of man that law was made for. Let's look up that term, righteous. Right?
Righteousness.
Right?
Righteous. Righteous.
Righteous. It says, of a person or conduct, morally right or justifiable, virtuous. Very good. Excellent. Let's get some similarities. We got good, virtuous, upright, upstanding, decent, worthy, ethical, principled, moral, high-minded, law-abiding, just, honest, innocent, faultless, honorable, blameless, guiltless, irreproachable, sinless. I'm going to end there. Sinless. So let's go back to 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verse 9. It says, "Knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, a sinless man," it says, "but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly, and for sinners, for unholy and profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, for manslayers, for whoremongers, for them that defile themselves with mankind, for men stealers, for liars, for perjured persons, if there be any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine." Right? Because let's find out what that sound doctrine is, man. Let's pick it up at the book of Sirach, chapter 19 and verse 19. And it reads, the book of Sirach, chapter 19 and verse 19. It says, "The knowledge of the commandment of Yahweh is the doctrine of life, And they that do things that please him shall receive the fruit of the tree of immortality. So the doctrine of life, which is opposite of death, because we saw the wages of sin is death. So the wages of life, of keeping the law, is life, right? So the payment of keeping the law would be eternal life, immortality, right? So it says that that doctrine will be immortality. Let's pick it up at Proverbs chapter 4, verse 2 and see what that doctrine is, right? Because Solomon said it in Sirach 19 and 19, and then Solomon also said it in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 2. He says, for I give you good doctrine. What's that good doctrine? Forsake ye not my law. So the Most High used Solomon to let you know that in order for you to be keeping the good doctrine, that is forsaking not the law, right? So let's go to Romans chapter 7 and verse 14. See what walking in that spirit is, because now when you're keeping the good doctrine, let's see how you enter into the spirit. It's the book of Romans chapter 7 and verse 14. And it reads, for we know that the law is spiritual. So that good doctrine is keeping the law. That's the spiritual. That's the getting of the tree of immortality, right? He says, for we know that the law is spiritual, but I am carnal, sold under sin. Why? Because we sold ourselves for naught by not keeping the laws and commandments. Let's get the book of St. John chapter 6 and verse 63. And it reads, it is the spirit that quickeneth, right? That law, the law is spiritual. So it's the law that quickeneth you, that change you, right? In the twinkling of an eye. It says, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life, right? So they are spirit and they are life. Because in order for you to get eternal life, you got to keep the commandments, right? Right, I get that real quick. It's the book of Matthew chapter 19 and verse 16. And it reads, and behold, one came and said unto him, good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? So it's a lawyer that came up to Yahushua and asked him, like, hey, good master, what good thing must I do to get the kingdom, to get the eternal life? It says, and he said unto him, verse 17, why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is Yahweh. But if thou wilt enter into life, if you want immortality, like Sirach 19 and 19 says, what do you got to do? Keep the commandments. So he said, you got to keep the commandments, man. Right? So let's get that. Let's finish it off in Galatians 5 and 16. It's the book of Galatians, chapter 5. We'll start at verse 16. And it reads, and it says, this I say then, walk in the spirit, walk in the law, statutes, and commandments, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. For the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things ye would. But if you be led of the spirit, if you be led of the law, Yasharallah, ye are not under the law. Right? So he's letting you know that if you be led by the law, you're not going to be under the law. What does that mean? It means that, A, you're not going to walk in sin, so that way you won't get judged. But if you walk in sin, now comes judgment. So I want to give all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh Ba'ashim, Mashiach Shai. I pray that the inspiration of scriptures of the day will help you on your walk. With that being said, Shalom.